That last thing I just did was just a test. I was trying to figure out what was happening earlier, but I didn't say that it was a test in the text, and I actually indicated that it was a real thing. So what happened previously, I had just done a video through the live show, but then I realized halfway through that y'all could not see me. My team was trying to get my attention, but I was so busy in the conversation, I did not realize that they had been texting me profusely saying, we can't see the video, we can't see the video. Last night, when I had done an Advocacy Academy course with our team, I had changed the settings so that when the time I came back today, y'all couldn't see me. The reason I'm doing this video again is because I know, as much as I want to believe that people will take in information, we live in a very visual world. And frankly, a lot of people are going to see that the previous video did not have any visual to it, and they're not going to watch. And this information is very important, and I want to make sure that it's getting out to as many people as possible. So if y'all can let me know in the chat. Okay, I see it looks like y'all can hear me, because I see the hearts. I see the hearts. I appreciate the hearts. I thank all of you, but I just wanted to make sure y'all can hear me. Okay, the message was good. You're going to get the same message. So if you already listen to this, although I got some extra stuff that I want to add as well. If you already listened to this, it's going to be very similar, but this video will replace the previous video, which has all the sound, but none of the audio, or I'm sorry, all the sound, but none of the video that we need to look at. So if you did hear this already, just pretend you didn't, because I got some extra stuff to add in. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just ignore everything that I just said. Pay attention to what's happening now. I'm very concerned about artificial intelligence. Very, very, very concerned about artificial intelligence because of the way it has taken over our environment. It has taken over our economy, and it's doing so in ways that hide the fact that it is very, very dangerous. Now, I ain't even gonna hold y'all in front like I have never used ChatGPT. I have used ChatGPT. There was an annual report I was working on for my nonprofit. I had poured my heart and soul into this annual report. I thought it was amazing. I was like, let me just run it into ChatGPT and see what chat says. Because I was curious, because everybody who had been, someone that I trust, had been talking about ChatGPT. Child, when I put that report, which I had poured my heart and soul into, I put that report into ChatGPT, and I was like, refine this and making it, optimal for a nonprofit audience. Baby, I ain't even gonna hold you. What came out was amazing. Now, I thought what I had put in was amazing, but what came out was really dope, and it really took my amazing content and made it that much better. I get the attraction. I get the desire to have sort of a personal assistant type function that is perfectly tuned towards you, but I think we also have to count the cost, because one of the things that I'm very concerned about is the fact that artificial intelligence has a huge cost on Black economies, has a huge cost on Black environments, and I don't know that we're necessarily taking all of that in. Now, as I said during the show, I was very surprised to find out that Steve Bannon and I are similarly positioned on this. Steve Bannon, as you know, who is Donald Trump's right-hand henchman. He's the minion of the minions. He's like the brains behind the whole organization, even though he looks very unwashed and uncleaned and very disheveled. He's actually really intelligent. And when it comes to certain issues, although I am completely in opposition to him on a whole host of things, on this issue, he and I are actually in agreement. A few weeks ago, not even a few weeks ago, last week, we talked about how when Prince Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia had come to the United States, he and Donald Trump had this whole, bromance situation at the White House. And we were so caught up into the press conference that a lot of us did not also cover. I think we talked about it, but a lot of outlets did not also cover the massive dinner that they held that night after the prince was here. And he was sort of, taken to task by a number of the reporters who were like, you were directly responsible for the unaliving of Jamal Khashoggi. A lot of Americans are upset. Saudi Arabia was directly connected to 9/11. Why are you even here? And after that, which sort of sucked up all the energy in the room when it came to this topic, we didn't pay as much attention to what happened later that evening. Later that evening, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Donald Trump, and all the tech bros, all the AI bros, all the billionaire bros end up having this wonderful dinner. I'm assuming it was wonderful. I wasn't there. So do with that what you will. But they end up having this dinner where Donald Trump starts talking extensively about his plans for artificial intelligence in the United States. And he says that basically AI, which he has described previously, according to the report, as one of the most important technological revolutions in the history of the world, he basically is touting his desire to overinvest, to increase the investment in artificial intelligence, because he thinks that is going to be what helps position America for greatness. Now, you might agree with that, you might disagree with that, but if you agree with it, well, frankly, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, you also have to factor in, what is this going to do to the actual human beings who live on this side of the planet? Now, Steve Bannon has had a much different perspective on this, which is curious because, again, he is one of Donald Trump's right-hand men, and he has been telling MAGA, what we cannot do is support AI. What we cannot do is support AI because it's going to destroy the working class, it's going to destroy MAGA. And he's saying so with comments like this, quote, "You have more restrictions on starting a nail salon on Capitol Hill or to have your hair braided than you have on the most dangerous technologies in the history of humankind." Now, that really matters because as we're about to see in this clip from Chris Murphy, who is a senator, I believe from Connecticut, he's basically sounding the alarm because a few years ago, not even a few years ago, I'm so sorry, time is a flat circle. A few months ago, there was this legislation that they were trying to get passed that would basically prevent anybody at the state level from putting any sort of regulations on artificial intelligence. It seemed back-ass crazy, like batshit crazy. I said back-ass crazy. It seemed batshit crazy at the time because, like, why would you do that? Why would you want to prevent the use of regulation to make sure that artificial intelligence agencies aren't destroying the planet, aren't destroying our economy? And this matters because when you look at the impact that our AI data centers have, particularly on Black communities, it's devastating. I'm going to share my screen, which you should also actually be able to see now and hear. I'm going to share my screen so you all can see and hear Senator Chris Murphy in his own words because he is sounding the alarm about something really challenging happening that we all frankly need to pay a lot of attention to because they are working now to get that legislation back, even though we did a lot of effort to make sure that that legislation was kept out of what passed into law. Take a listen to Senator Chris Murphy because what the AI data center folks are doing now is basically trying to go around, basically do an end run around the work that people like myself, people like organizers have engaged in to try to actually create a situation where can't nobody regulate AI except AI. Take a listen. Let's turn it up. There we go. Boom.
Donald Trump and the AI companies that are trying to poison our kids and destroy all our jobs are like this, like thick as thieves. The Trump administration and the AI companies, these billionaires that run these big companies, they cooked up this crazy idea a couple months ago. They said, let's pass a law that bans the ability for states to regulate AI. The AI industry does not want to be regulated. They don't want to stop poisoning your kids. They don't want to stop destroying your jobs. They want to be a totally unregulated industry. And so they said, Republicans, why don't you pass a law to ban states from regulating us? Like, this doesn't happen in any other industry, but because the AI industry gets whatever they want from Donald Trump, because these billionaires that run the companies are tight with Trump, Trump said yes. And Republicans tried in the spring to pass a ban on state regulation of AI, but they failed because that's wildly unpopular. Nobody wants that. People want AI, but they want to be protected from abuse. And so when the measure came before the Senate voted 99-1 against stopping states from regulating AI. Guess what? The AI industry was furious. They came back to Trump. They said, we want you to sneak it in to some piece of legislation that has to pass. And so right now, as we speak, Trump, the AI industry, and Republicans in Congress are talking about putting that provision in the National Defense Bill. That's a really important must-pass bill. That's the bill that authorizes the defense of the United States of America. We pass it every single year. And now they're talking about including a provision written by the AI industry that would prevent you from going to your state legislature to lobby, for instance, for a law that says AI chatbots can't cheerlead your kids into suicide, which, by the way, is happening all over the internet right now. States would be banned from regulating AI, which would make these AI billionaires like triple, quadruple billionaires, and it would hurt tons of workers and tons of kids all across this country. The rich and the powerful control the Trump White House. In particular, the AI industry controls this White House. And you just need to know what is happening right now.
And we need to know that because the reality is they're trying to not only create data centers all over the place, they're particularly trying to create these data centers in Black and brown communities. You guys may recall that when there were pipelines that were going down, I want to say in one of the Dakotas, maybe north or I can't remember if it was North or South Dakota, but basically the challenge was that they were trying to run this pipeline through a white community and the whites were not taking it. The whites were very upset and the whites organized and they did the work of making sure that couldn't nobody somebody come in and just put this pipeline any old place. And they were very successful. That pipeline was not laid down in that white community. It was instead redirected through a Black community that was far less organized and far less capable of preventing this sort of thing from happening in spaces where their children play, in spaces where their old people try to grow old. And frankly, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And now the community essentially has to navigate having these pipelines, or in the case of artificial intelligence, data centers. Once they're there, they're not leaving. They're not leaving. And this is another reason why we as Black people in particular have to be very concerned about this. Now, the challenge that we have is that Donald Trump and the Republicans, as you can see, they are doing everything they can to ensure that artificial intelligence remains unregulated. And they're talking about all of the benefits that it's going to cause for industry, how it's going to allow our corporations to do so much better. I don't know about you, but corporations don't eat food. They eat people, but they don't eat food. And I need to be able to not just ensure that I don't frankly care whether the corporations are doing well or not. I'm much more concerned about we, the people, and considering that the insiders for artificial intelligence agencies are very clear that ain't no jobs being created behind artificial intelligence. Sure, you've got the jobs where basically you're going to create the data center itself, you're going to construct it, but once that thing is constructed, up and running, that's it for you. Ain't gonna be no more AI jobs coming out of that data center, because everything is operated robotically. It is operated remotely. I'm going to once again share my screen. I want you all to take a listen to this video clip. This is an insider at Microsoft. She's a lawyer for Microsoft who basically is acknowledging, don't nobody want an AI data center in their community because ain't no jobs. She's acknowledging that while basically trying to convince people that jobs is what they should be advocating for when it comes to artificial intelligence. I want you all to take a listen to this video clip and hear what she says in her own words. Take a listen.
And nobody really wants a data center in their backyard.
They don't.
I don't want a data center in my backyard.
I don't either, Megan.
So you do get a lot of pushback, and you need buy-in from the community because you have to get permits to do that work. And you have government officials that they are elected by the community. They certainly want to make their constituents happy. And so you in turn have to make their constituents happy so that you can still get your permit and you can still operate there. Data centers, once they are operational, don't bring a lot of jobs. They do on the construction side, but you're not really getting a ton of that community benefit from having
you
a
don't
data
say
really truly in your backyard.
Right, because really it don't work. Because don't nobody want it, because it doesn't create jobs. This is all a Ponzi scheme. Like, this is all about, and I know your report sounds better when you run it through ChatGPT, but when you think about the impact that it is going to have on our environment, and let's talk about the environment for just a moment. We're going to see some of this in just a bit, but literally data centers generate a lot of heat. One, because they're consuming a lot of energy, because in order to get enough computing power into one space where they're going to be able to basically ensure that your AI, your chat, whatever it is that you're looking at actually works, it consumes a lot of energy. That might be okay if we still had a president who was trying to expand solar power, who's expanding wind power. But y'all's president believes that windmills are ugly and they cause cancer. He believes that solar panels only work when the sun is out because he don't understand batteries, because he's not that bright. And the Republicans around him either are not that bright or they don't care. But we're in a situation where the AI data centers that are being propped up in rural communities and Black communities, just like Cancer Alley, they basically function such that they require so much generation of energy, consumption of energy, yes, but also generating of energy in order to answer your basic question that you probably could have, with 5 minutes of extra work, answered yourself with just a straight Google search, or I'm trying not to use Google, a DuckDuckGo search, or Ask Jeeves, whatever, some other sort of search. You could have done that on your own, but by using your chatbot, you cause the computers in the data center to whir at such a high rate. And I'm using whir as if that's a scientific term. It's not, but they basically have to cycle through so much energy in order to give you an answer that you could have found on your own, that it also increases the heat and the toxins that that data center is spewing off. In addition, because the heat is so extreme, the water that is needed in order to cool the data centers is water that we humans would be drinking, because they cannot use salt water to cool off the data centers. They need physical, cold, fresh water to cool off the data centers. Once that water has been used to cool off the data centers, we can't drink it. It's not recoverable. It's not something that we have the technology to readily reinsert back into our water supply. So we, the humans who are using artificial intelligence to get reports done quicker, are competing with robots who drink more water than entire towns, who consume more electricity than entire towns, such that everybody's electric prices are increasing. And we haven't even gotten to the toxic fumes and the sicknesses and the diseases that community members who are in spaces where data centers are located actually also experience. All right, hold on, let me check the chat, make sure everybody doing good, because I don't have my team right here. I just gotta make sure anybody cutting up in the chat. Okay, everybody's playing along nicely. All right, good. I appreciate y'all coming back, because I know y'all was like, this is twice in one day. But that's because I messed up the visual, but that's okay. The other clip I wanted to share with you, and this is one that I shared earlier today as well, is considering the impacts on jobs. Right? We are already talking about the fact that over 500,000 Black people are now unemployed who were gainfully employed at this time last year through no fault of their own, through the fault of white nationalist racists and the racism. And we're also talking about the fact that we are cutting off, this nation has decided to cut off access to higher education for entire swaths of learning spheres and learning sectors. We have talked about the fact that this is going to negatively impact women in particular, but not just fields where women are very present, also people or fields that require you to have some sort of white collar, which is always a funny term to me, low barrier to entry sort of position. These are positions that frankly people rely upon to make their way up the economic ladder, to make their way up the corporate ladder. And in this interview with a gentleman by the name of, I can't remember his name. Oh, here it is. By the name of Dario Amodi. He's a part of an organization called Anthropic. He's the CEO there. He is talking with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes about how AI is basically going to wipe away 10 to 20% of the white collar entry level jobs. And if you can't get an entry level job on your basic ass education and they just cut off access to funding for advanced degrees, then how is it that you actually gonna get paid, Cletus? How you gonna have a job, Clem? Let's talk about this after we look at this video. Let's take a listen.
You've said AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years.
Yes,
that's shocking.
That is the future we could see if we don't become aware of this problem now.
Half of all entry-level white-collar jobs.
If we look at entry-level consultants, lawyers, financial professionals, many of kind of the white-collar service industries, a lot of what they do, AI models are already quite good at, and without intervention. It's hard to imagine that there won't be some significant job impact there. And my worry is that it'll be broad and it'll be faster than what we've seen with previous technology.
Now, one of the things we have to ask ourselves is, if everybody's getting laid off and ain't nobody got jobs, who buying all the shit that AI is creating? Like, who's buying it? And as I said earlier, I know a lot of people have said, but we'll have by that time universal basic income. Have you seen legislation that is credibly capable of fronting like it's universal basic income? I know this is something that was talked about during election cycles, but it's not typically something that people are really gunning for right now. Universal basic income is something that Martin Luther King Jr. was talking about. This is something that is, I don't want to call it ancient, because America is the one non-ancient nation on the planet, one of many, but I don't want to suggest that this is ancient, but this is an old conversation that we should just give people access to universal basic income so that they can have the opportunity to have meaningful lives that aren't driven by the time clock. Have you seen any of that? I haven't seen none of it. What I have seen is a whole lot of people who are trying to make a whole lot of money in the short term, who ain't really thinking about how we, the people, are going to navigate in the long term. And I want you to take a listen to this clip. This is tech reporter Karen Hale. Her last name is spelled H-A-O. I know I butchered it, y'all. I'm sorry, but y'all know I'm sorry to Karen. I want y'all to take a listen to this clip. Y'all are going to see, hold on, let's see if we can get it up here without her talking yet. All right, hold on, because again, I'm doing this by myself because the team is off for Thanksgiving, and we want to make sure that y'all see the right content. All right, take a listen to what she has to say about what also we have to be concerned about when it comes to AI.
Came out with a report that said in the next 5 years, based on the current pace of AI computational infrastructure expansion, we would need to put as much energy on the global grid as what is consumed by 2 to 6 times the energy consumed annually by the state of California.
Jeez.
And that will mostly be serviced by fossil fuels. We're already seeing reporting of coal plants with their lives being extended. They were supposed to retire, but now they cannot to support this data center development. We are seeing methane gas turbines, unlicensed ones, being popped up to service these data centers as well. From a fresh water perspective, these data centers need to be trained on fresh water. They cannot be trained on any other type of water because it can corrode the equipment, it can lead to bacterial growth. And most of the time, it actually taps directly into a public drinking water supply. McKinsey recently came out.
So this is what I'm talking about. We already don't have enough fresh water. We already have entire communities navigating drought. The beef industry, half the reason that we have such fewer beef, such smaller cattle herds, and then compared to what we used to have, is because of the drought conditions that so many of us are living in. You have AI data centers being established in parts of Texas that ain't seen no water. You have AI data centers that consume water extensively and exclusively fresh water that we have not seen actually be able to work and go into a status where they are considered being online because there's not enough water to actually get them there. Yet we're all supposed to believe that AI is going to be the thing that saves us in the future. Now I'm going to play this clip. This one is a little longer. It's a 3-minute clip or so. And this is Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about the way in which we're supposed to be taking in all of this data. Because according to the billionaire bros, the economy is great. The economy is amazing. According to the billionaire bros, we've got all the money that we need. And have you seen how well AI is doing? Well, take a listen to what AOC is saying, because what's basically happening is you have, those extension cords, and I actually had one earlier and then my son came and got it. But those extension cords that you plug it into the wall and then you can plug a whole bunch of other things into that extension cord. The only way that extension cord is able to get power to the other appliances that are plugged into it is if the extension cord is plugged into a power source outside of itself. The extension cord is not itself a power source. It is a conduit of power. And if you plug it into the wall and the wall outlet has power, then you will be able to power all those other things. What if you were to take that extension cord and in addition to the items that were plugged into it, plug it out of the wall and then plug it into one of the open ports for itself? There is no power generating. That image is basically what is happening when it comes to our economy. And Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to explain this to you all in this video clip. And I want you to pay attention because right now, the health of the stock market, the entire health of the American economy depends on us believing that an extension cord can plug into itself and power itself, because AI is now making up nearly 50%. There's between 40 and 50% of our economic benefits reality. Take a listen to AOC as she explains this as only she can. Take a listen.
That they haven't yet proven. Just this morning, the Wall Street Journal reported a significant drop in the US stock market with the headline AI bubble fears hit stocks. Now, this also contrasts with what we've been hearing from the Trump administration, that the economy in general is thriving. And he's been saying that the economy is booming, but it's only 7 tech companies that are booming: Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta. And they're driving this growth in just one sector, AI. So the entire US economy growth can be tracked down to 7 companies and their AI growth specifically. At least 40% of economic growth this year is attributed to these companies alone. And 80% of stock gains this year came from AI companies. But people are justifying these levels of investment because of the promises that the CEOs make that there will be a return on that investment. So for a company like OpenAI, their value is based on the expectation that they're going to figure out how to make a profit out of it. And they haven't. And so generating this increased human dependency that can be mined, because it's not subject to HIPAA. Is that correct, Dr. King? Right, it's not subject. It's not subject to HIPAA.
My God.
So people's deepest fears, secrets, emotional content, relationships can all be mined for this empty promise that we're getting from these companies to turn a profit. And the reason I bring all of this up is because the exposure of this industry and this investment, I fear, has reached broad levels potentially of the American economy. We're talking about 40% of stock growth in the United States being attributed to these companies in the AI sector alone, and that sector has not turned a profit. We're talking about a massive economic bubble.
Jesus.
And when we've seen depending on the exposure of that bubble, we could see 2008 style threats to economic stability.
Now I'm going to pause it there because just for time's sake, I know I got other stuff I got to do. I know y'all got other stuff y'all got to do. For time's sake, what she's talking about is what happened in 2008, 2009, 2010, when we had the foreclosure prices. You had prior to that, a lot of people saying these prices are not sustainable. The level of growth that you're saying that we're experiencing in the housing community, it is not sustainable. And this was happening at a time where Black communities and Latino communities were being targeted with these toxic, racist mortgage products, adjustable rate mortgages, negative amortizing mortgages, mortgages that were designed to fail. And what essentially happened was Black people, Latino people got houses that, and I know that people like to say, well, they was buying too much house. They couldn't afford a house. Nah, friends, like, no, the banks were targeting them and only giving them access to loan products that were designed to fail. And we know that because these are the same banks that then had to pay settlement fees. Wells Fargo was a big one. Countrywide was a big one. Washington Mutual, which no longer even exists anymore, was a big one. These were countries. These were corporations. These were banks that basically were taking these loan products that were designed to fail. And they would take the loan products. Once you got a mortgage, they would bundle your mortgage with a whole bunch of other mortgages from your community. They would bundle them together and resell them on the secondary market. So when you take a bunch of loan products that are designed to fail and you bundle them together and you resell them on the secondary market, and then it's resold and resold and resold, by the time you can no longer pay your mortgage because it adjusted beyond your ability to do so, that is going to have ripple effects throughout the entire economy. Because of the way the artificial intelligence industry is organized right now, you've got OpenAI that's lending money to NVIDIA to buy its chips, or vice versa. I can't even remember at this point. And then not only are they selling the chips to other people in the AI industry, they're then giving them the loans to pay for the money that they will need in order to buy the chips. Now, there's this amazing sister on the Threads app who was able to explain this in a really powerful way. And I'm going to try to find this for you because I want to make sure that we're clear about what is happening. This is not something I'm pulling up out of my nether regions. All right, I didn't come up with this shit. I'm just translating it in language that our people can understand. Her name is Elizabeth Rose Halligan, and she says the following, quote, "Someone told me I need to better explain what's actually happening in the economy right now in plain language." Noted. So here it is. Companies borrowed tons of money to build AI, but AI doesn't make a profit yet. Pause. We know that AI don't make a profit yet because I told y'all a couple of weeks ago, there was a report that came out that basically said out of all the corporations that have incorporated AI into their day-to-day affairs, less than 5% of them have actually been able to make a profit as a result thereof, which is why I don't believe it when corporations are saying they're, because of AI, they no longer have to hire people. I think that's a lie. It's some bullshit, but we'll talk about that another day. She goes on to say that AI doesn't make a profit yet. It loses about $14 billion a year at least. So they borrowed more money just to pay off their first loans. Then they borrow more money to keep scaling and servicing their previous loans. If they stop borrowing money, the entire house of cards collapses immediately. She didn't say house of cards. That's me editorializing. She says, so they can't stop borrowing. Continuing on, she says, but here's the thing. Their money that they're borrowing to build out this AI has to come from somewhere. And she says it's coming from private credit firms, pension funds, retirement accounts, your 401ks, our parents' retirements, and those mid-level firms jumped into the lending game because yields were supposedly high. Easy money, they thought. Now they're stuck. They have been giving and lending this money to entities that do not make any money, entities that have to keep borrowing money to keep scaling AI, which we cannot sustain. Nobody can sustain it. She goes on to say that they're stuck. They can't stop lending or their own balance sheets will collapse. Everyone is locked into a borrowing frenzy that no one can quit. She goes on to say, this is why the stock market looks fine. The market isn't measuring actual profit or value. It's measuring the borrowing that's propping it up. And every time a company announces another $500 billion AI investment, their stocks go up, but that is not growth. That's the debt fueling this being repackaged and sold to the public as optimism. So when I told y'all that during the foreclosure crisis, they would take the mortgages that people had gotten, toxic, racist mortgage products that were designed to fail. They would bundle them together and resell them. Basically, the person who is in the resale portion, that chain, they're the losers. Well, if my pensions and your pensions and our retirement funds and our public money is what is doing the reselling and the lending and the buying, when these motherfuckers fail, we all fail. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that I'm not like, I want to make sure that we are clear about this because there is no profit yet happening with artificial intelligence. We aren't seeing it. Nobody is seeing profits from AI, but all the people who get to announce that their stocks are increasing, they get the benefit of stock price increase. Now, if you've got stock in these companies, I guess that's fine for you. The rest of us don't. And the challenge is that it also then creates a situation where we are basically no longer able to even defend ourselves from the work that's happening. Now, this part is going to piss some of y'all off. I'm sorry, because I know we love Westmore. We love Westmore, but sometimes I be thinking the way I see Westmore move, that sometimes we think that Westmore is who the mayor of Chicago is. I don't mean to compete and put people in competition with each other. I'm just saying these are things that we need to be aware of. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. Take a look at this clip. And this was shared by an account known as Climate Defiance on Instagram. And they say in the caption, do you remember when Westmore, governor of Maryland, ran on environmental justice? Yeah, that was a lie. They say Moore is fast tracking data centers across Maryland, especially in thriving Black communities like PG County, all while vetoing bills that would assess their impacts. Fossil fuel generators, air pollution poisoning kids. Curtis Bay has already some of the highest childhood asthma rates in the country, so bad the EPA had to investigate Baltimore for environmental racism. Moore's response was to cut climate funding, veto bills, and ignore residents. He's vetoed 5 times more bills than any Democratic governor in Maryland's history. Hundreds of PG County residents protested. We want a temporary pause. Governor Moore still won't acknowledge them or meet any of his climate promises. Environmental racism in action, corporate profits over lies, and they say Westmore is a fraud. Now I'm going to play this video, and I'm not suggesting that Westmore is a fraud. I'm just suggesting that the people who are in his community, who are trying to get him to not align with the AI centers, they are saying it. I'm letting you see it. I know we don't like it when we got to call out our own, but sometimes that's what we got to do. So hold on, let me get to the right screen so that we can do this properly. Let's make sure I'm sharing that and not my notes, because y'all don't need to be seeing my notes, because your sister friend don't need to share. I don't think I just shared my notes. Okay, here we go. Let me refresh the screen so you all can hear it. Hold on one second.
You vetoed it.
Here we go. Just about now. Oh Lord, they're calling him out.
In Georgia County, close to Landover, where the proposed data center is built. And I'm also really scared because data centers keep getting built in Black and brown communities. And you vetoed a bill that would have allowed us to research the data impacts of that. And my community does not want more data centers being built at the cost of our health, our air, our water, our electric bills, so that billionaires can get richer. That's not what I want for Maryland.
I agree.
But you vetoed the bill for making my kids' lungs at risk. We have asthma. We don't need data centers in our community.
And I'm very clear that there is nothing that happens to our communities without our communities.
That might sound great, but it's bullshit. My community doesn't want this. No one who lives and works and goes to school here wants our air or water quality at risk, or for our electric bills to skyrocket. But we aren't being heard.
And I've been clear about that from the very
But my
clear
community doesn't want this. We don't want this in our community. And we need you to stand for us.
Not my word, I do. I am.
But we don't have your record. I have friends in Curtis Bay whose parents have lung cancer because of the environmental racism there. You can't leave no one behind, but Black kids are being left behind to environmental racism. I feel like you can do better. You campaign on climate justice. Why not meet those promises?
So listen, again, I know we don't like to have to do it, but when you're in a position of power, you got to do it. Like we got to do it. So this is the challenge that so many of our communities are facing right now. We are in a situation where, quite frankly, we don't have the capacity to fight effectively enough that people in positions of power are hearing us, even unfortunately, sometimes when those people in power come from our communities. Now, the other challenge that we have, and I'm not going to share this video clip because again, I got to go, I got a whole dentist appointment coming up and I got to make a run, but you will be able to hear this if you listen to the podcast later on. The rollout of AI technology is also creating a new form of class warfare, a thinking class versus a scrolling class. Actually, you know what? Damn it, I'm gonna play it because the dentist is up the street. I'm gonna play the video because I want y'all to see this video because y'all be, again, sometimes y'all be thinking I be hyperbolic. I just be right. But basically, this is a video shared by Cheyenne Hunt, who's talking about the different ways that people who are making artificial intelligence, who are making technological advances, how they think about those things versus what they tell us about how we should think about those things. I'm going to play this clip because I think it's important for you to, it is important for you to hear this in their own words. And give me 1 second. Let me get this up so y'all can see it, because I know that it's good when you can hear it from other people. Okay, here we go. Where it's happening, not now, and boom.
The next phase of class warfare, a much more dangerous one. And if we don't make some dramatic changes quickly, it could be really hard to come back from. I started thinking about this when I heard Brene Brown talk about being in rooms with some of these tech billionaires and the way that they talk to normal people versus the way they talk to each other. When people come up and ask, what can my kids do to be successful like you? Usually they're playing down the importance of college education, saying that it's expensive and unnecessary, telling them to have their kids study computer science online, become self-taught, take risks, start a business, learn AI. Yet when these guys are talking to each other about what they did to get where they are and how they're continuing to grow, they're talking about what they're reading. They're talking about the Stoics. They're talking about scholarship and growth and academia. And they're talking about internal work, what they're reading psychologically, what they're doing, how they're working on themselves in that way. And so two new classes are emerging versus just wealthy and poor. We're seeing the emergence of a thinking class and a scrolling class, a reading class and a streaming class, a writing class and an AI prompting class. Critical thinking is becoming a luxury of the rich and powerful, and this is by design. The guys that develop these technologies know what they do to our brains and how they limit our ability to think for ourselves over time. That's why when Steve Jobs was asked if his kids loved the iPad, he said they didn't have one. People don't understand that all of these things are connected. The censorship of public education, banning books, the war on colleges, and the rollout of these AI technologies that make it easier for us to not think our own thoughts. All of that is designed to make us more docile and easier to control. Forming your own opinions, deciding what you think and finding the evidence to back it up, that's a skill that can be lost very easily. Obviously, we can talk about that on a societal level, but let's stay on the individual for right now. What have you been reading lately? How often have you been letting AI think for you or speak for you? When was the last time you had a deep intellectual conversation with a friend? If we don't prioritize these things, we will lose them. There's a $1 billion industry dedicated to making sure we do.
So listen, you can connect with Chat GPT all you wish. I'm not trying to be the Chat GPT police. Lies. I am trying to be the Chat. The benefits that we're supposed to be getting out of artificial intelligence do not redound to us. They do not redound to us. I'm sorry, they redound to a whole lot of other people. They do not redound to us. And I want us to be aware of that. I want us to be crystal clear about that, because if we're not, then we end up basically giving control over our brains, over our spirits, over our hearts, over our intellect to people who only know how to profit from it and then discard us in the aftermath. And yesterday I sang a song. Y'all heard it. Y'all know I'm not like a singer. I'm not a singer. Okay, I can hold a note, but I'm not a singer. And it was basically fun. It was designed to be fun because I enjoy creating parodies of music. Consider me like the Black woman's Weird Al Yankovic of like the 2025. I like that sort of stuff. I like using music that already exists to create messages that will stick with people. But we also have to be clear that it's dangerous because, and the reason I'm raising this is because one of you amazing YouTubers, you said, oh, you should take the song and stick it in AI. It'll clean it up for you. One, it's not supposed to be a cleaned up thing. Like literally I'm warbling on the microphone and that's sort of the fun of it, right? I don't have ego around this. It's okay for me to, it's easy for me to be self-deprecating about this, but I'm mentioning this particular point because even our art, the thing that makes us in some ways uniquely human, our art is also now being commoditized in ways that a lot of artists have been warning us, don't do it. It's terrible. It's an awful thing. We should not have this sort of thing happening. And we talk about on a regular basis how art is being consumed and it's being basically commoditized by AI in ways that cannot be prevented. But I think it could be prevented if we were to just stop using it. I want you all to take a listen to this video because this is the last one I'm going to share for today. This is a singer who I have been following recently on Instagram. She goes by the name Sing Kirby Sing. Dope sister, beautiful voice, amazing content. And I want you to listen to what it is that she talks about here in this video clip, because it really is speaking to our role, our obligation, our responsibility to hold sacred the things that we need to hold sacred. Her name is Sing Kirby Sing. She's amazing and dope.
I think the thing that people don't understand about AI is that the only reason you can type in lyrics and say, I want this guitar loop, I want this drum sound, I want this R&B from the 1970s. The only reason that emphasis on artificial intelligence can come up with this song is because it is the sum of all great songs. It's the sum of all our hard work. It's the sum of all previous artists. And they're taking what has worked in the past and giving you something new. And when a writer decides to put their lyrics into AI, and AI gives you a song, it gives you a melody, it gives you a cadence, it gives you a pattern, it gives you a verse, hook, bridge, structure. You're ripping off the work of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people before you. I think that
And that's why we should care. This is why we should care. This shit is destroying our ability to breathe. It spews off gases that destroy our lungs. This thing is consuming more water than we can drink, which means there's going to be less water for us to drink. It is raising our electric bills. It is requiring the consumption of energy that now, as a result of y'all's president, we no longer are even using a renewable energy. And it is destroying economies. It is destroying our ability to have a job. And I don't know how this ends without us ending up in some like matrix situation where the AI is just sucking our life's blood, because if our life's blood really is our intellect and the things that make us uniquely human, then we really got to ask ourselves, are we benefiting from AI, or are the billionaires just find another way to benefit from us and convince us to work alongside it, the same way that wealthy white people convince poor white people to agree with slavery, a system of free labor, which meant by design, poor white people could not get paid to do anything. And it also meant that as a result, poor white people would forever be in a position where, like today, they will vote against their economic best interest just because they're white. Let's not be the poor whites of the AI industry. All right. I love y'all. I appreciate you rocking with me. Gotta go. I gotta get to this dentist appointment before the dentist leaves for the holidays. I appreciate y'all. Sorry for the situation with the video earlier.